If men and women were the same, then you would have equal representation of women in the army. You would have equal representation of women in the on construction sites. So there is clearly some sort of a difference, which is not a social construct. A man is not necessarily going to be attracted to a woman more because she has a multi-six-figure salary. That is a fact. Or that she's a vice president. Or that she drives a BMW. Men don't necessarily see value in that. They may not. So the value is determined differently. For me, a value, if I'm looking at a woman, to me, a woman that is feminine, first of all, that's value for me, right? Is she going to compliment me? Does she have similar values to me? Is she somebody who is disruptive, or can she maintain harmony? Has she got a desire to nurture and feed? If I'm out there, for example, I'm not saying that women need to be restricted to traditional roles. She can have her career, but at the end of the day, I want women to understand that high value men will not necessarily perceive high value in a woman having a great career. He's going to look for other attributes that he doesn't have. So if I'm a high value man, I already know how to make money. I know how to build business. I know how to get clients. I know how to build a lifestyle. I know how to build net worth. I don't need her to do that. She can do it because she wants to do it. That's fine. But I'm not going to perceive high value in that. So women also need to understand, just those, it's like if I am a great cook, or I'm great at cleaning the house, and I'm not saying that it's a traditional role, but let's just say I'm a man who's incredibly good at sitting with you, hold your hand and watch movies and cry. You may not necessarily see value in that. You might say, I want my man to have a bit of wild streak in him. I want him to go out there and have the ability to hunt. Because if he can't hunt, hunting as in go and make money, go and build something. If he hasn't got the ability to hunt, he hasn't got the ability to protect. So men and women perceive value in each other differently as well. And that's another problem that I have with this whole argument that gender is a social construct. It's actually not. We are naturally attracted to certain attributes in the opposite sex, just like the opposite sex has certain things that it's attracted to in us. And the other problem is the hypocrisy of the equality argument. As you know, I had said this recently. I said, well, so women are saying that they want equality, yet women never opt for men that are the same height as them, same physique as them, same size as them, makes the same money as them. So in effect, a woman is basically saying, look, I actually want equality, but when it comes to the selection of a man, I don't. That's fine. She's absolutely entitled to that, but let's acknowledge that double standard, right? Let's not hide that conversation. A woman has every right to choose whoever she wants to be with, and she should. She should never settle for anyone less than what she wants to be with. But she should also at the same time acknowledge that there is a double standard.
What kind of equality are you voting for? What kind of equality are you looking for then?
I think women need to have the equal same rights. If the income, if they work and they have the same qualifications, same experience, same capability in terms of work ethic, same ability to make sacrifices, same commitment. If they have the same as a man, they should never get paid less. I mean, I don't know why that happens, right? They should get paid the same as a man. But a lot of the times what happens is they have the same qualifications and the same experience as a man, but they don't have the same drive, the same ability, same work ethic in many cases as a man, but they want the same pay as a man. Now there's a hypocrisy there, there's a double standard there, because we're not acknowledging that the man is prepared to work 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, he's prepared to drive 100 kilometers a day to go and see clients. In a lot of cases, men are making sacrifices. Sometimes I say, if men and women were the same, then you would have equal representation of women in the army. You would have equal representation of women in the construction sites. So there is clearly some sort of a difference, which is not a social construct. It's inherently there. It's biologically there. Now, it's not about saying that because those differences exist, that women are inferior. We are not saying that at all. But this is how the feminist movement perceive this argument. They're not inferior. They have different strengths. We have different strengths. We are weak in certain areas and women are superior in certain areas. But women are inferior in certain areas and we're superior in other areas. Overall, we're the same, but we have different strengths and weaknesses. The feminist argument will pretend that we have the same strengths and same weaknesses.
That's not true, exactly.
That annoys me because it's like, you are just lying. You're just lying, right? You're absolutely. And then the argument is, but there are women in the army as well. Yes, exceptions always exist. But
at what percentage does it exist?
Well, exactly right. And so the existence of an exception doesn't invalidate the norm. The norm is still that there are a lot of activities men are better suited for. and men have a natural desire for dominance and conquering, and those things should not be labeled as negative. If a man has also developed emotional intelligence and spiritual awareness, those qualities or those desires to dominate and conquer are actually very positive. Also, we should not be gaslighting men into becoming more and more tolerant. I don't think it's required, because we were talking about what's happening, in the West right now, and this is a very politically incorrect conversation, but I just want you to understand. I'm of the belief that anytime they're trying to indoctrinate the public, they first target women and youth. University qualified youth, maybe they're more susceptible to going with any narrative that sounds benevolent, and then women are the same, generally it seems. Men are a little bit more intolerant. We're like, no, sorry, we're going to put some boundaries here.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we don't want to be oppressive. We want to be reasonable. If a man will place boundaries, he must first demonstrate that he's a good leader who has rational thinking skills, and he has a good reason for setting boundaries. You don't just set boundaries for the sake of setting boundaries. And that's why I agree with that point that you made, that a spiritual man will always be reasonable. He'll say, okay, the boundaries here are required for these reasons. He will not just enforce boundaries because he can. That's oppressive, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes boundaries need to be enforced, because in the West, what's happened is, in the name of tolerance and inclusion, now we are at a point where a lot of female psychologists are now trying to normalize pedophilia by saying that, let's not call them pedophiles, let's call them minor attracted, right? And this is the problem because at what point do you draw the line? Should there be any line in the sand where people say this is acceptable, this isn't acceptable? Because if you don't draw a line, then everything's acceptable.
Exactly.
Then we have no right to complain. Then we should allow anything bad to happen. We have no right to complain. So men were the custodians. Our main role was, as long as we demonstrated and earned our leadership, we then made rules and we set boundaries.
Right.
Now men don't do that. We're afraid of setting boundaries because we're going to automatically be labeled as controlling. We're going to be, rather than being labeled as responsible, we're going to be automatically labeled as controlling and oppressive.
Exactly.
Right? And look, I'm not saying that every man should lead. There are definitely a lot of men that have not earned the right to lead. They need to work on themselves. They need to develop emotional intelligence. They need to develop character. They need to develop competence. They need to develop spiritual awareness. They need to develop wisdom. But once a man has that, it's pretty unfair to then label that man as oppressive just because he wants to set boundaries or he wants to set rules.